the IDF and Shin Bet have recovered the body of Elan Weiss from Gaza, 55-year-old man. Again, just his body as he was a hostage. Well, technically, he wasn't a hostage in Gaza because he was murdered on October 7th, and his body was still taken by Hamas into Gaza because they were hoping to get something out of that, get possibly some deal, or basically to negotiate for bodies. He was killed, as I've said, on October 7th as he ran to the weapon storage room in kibbutz in Be'eri, where he lived. And yeah, as I've said, the terrorists still decided to take his body, as we've seen with others that basically have been taken on October 7. So, welcome to the Daily Objective. This is one of the things we'll discuss today, also comments around it. And then, if we have time, there was an interesting appearance from the Israeli ambassador to the United States. We have a 1 minute clip, so we might play that if we have time. Joining me today is Jonathan Honig. It's great to have you on. And I mean, Jonathan, question for you: what kind of culture even gives rise to this, like straight on, like that culture? Like we are going into other nation and we'll take bodies with us
Yeah, I mean,
back.
Daniel, I mean, it seems so far away now, but tales and the evidence of the atrocities, true atrocities committed against Jews and against Israelis on October 7th. It's the stuff of horror movies, and I think at the time, I remember we talked about the fact of like, what would it take for you to be able to literally cut off someone's head, even if it was someone that you hated, even if it was someone that to physically deface a human body like that would be, for me at least, and I think for anyone who kind of cares about humanity, would be pretty difficult to do. But it's seemingly part of this Palestinian culture, in so much that it's not so much to kill an enemy, but to take the body and to hold the body as ransom and to besmirch and to put down that body as an independent entity. I mean, it's a slave even when it's dead in this Palestinian death cult. So it's just one thing about Israel, and I'm not Israeli, but I was raised Jewish, and you always know that the cheers in Judaism and in Israel is l'chaim, to life. This is a culture that celebrates life. The Palestinians, certainly as evidenced by this war, is the exact opposite.
Yeah, and something that was also released, I think either today or yesterday, a previously unseen October 7th footage was released from the Asa family in Netiv HaAsara. And for those who have seen the footage, it's also like, I mean, disturbing. It shows the father with his. I'm not sure if those were his boys because I've seen some different things, but at least one of them was where they ran into some kind of shelter but wasn't properly closed or something, and a Hamas or a Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist, I'm not sure who it was specifically, they saw them going in and they threw in the grenade, and the father was killed on a spot, and the children were able to sort of like walk away, but of course Hamas was still there. And afterwards the Hamas soldier went into the house, opened the fridge, took the drink out of the fridge and like threw it, drank it, and like that sort of uh like what does it take to be so propagandized that yeah, you have such a little regard for human life, such a little regard for I mean, again, civilians,
Right.
like people who were attacked on October 7 were civilians.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Daniel. I mean, zero regard for human life and looking for an opportunity to hunt down unarmed people, as you said, civilians, women, children, and just hunt them down and shoot them from the back of a pickup truck like you're on, safari in Africa. I mean, could you ask yourself, like, could I do that to another human being? I mean, I know I couldn't perpetuate that type of violence against a human body. I have too much reverence just for humanity itself. But the atrocities of which Hamas gleefully filmed themselves, and which have been shared in a number of documentaries, and it's out there. I mean, this is what they strive to do, and yet, of course, it's Israel that gets all the blame for the genocide that Israel has caused. I mean, and completely absent of that is the context of these Hamas animals hunting down, murdering completely innocent non-military people, and then, as evidenced by this person, taking their bones, taking their remains back, and holding them hostage. I mean, there's something even about that. It's like it's not. I remember Dr. Peikoff once talked about wars being make the threat non-threatening. I'm paraphrasing him, but what does it say when you take the remains of someone who you've murdered, and now you're going to hold those hostage? You're going to take those from the family. There's just a sick level of hatred of man that runs through the Palestinian culture, in my opinion.
Yeah, and so this was Elan Weiss that we are talking about, that is on the thumbnail. His wife and daughter were also abducted to Gaza, but were released in the first deal. Now, we have a comment from the Israeli president, Herzog, that I wanted to read. It says, the horrors, I think I'm just reading a second part of it. The horrors committed by Hamas, murder, torture, abduction, are crimes against humanity. The world must show moral clarity, apply pressure, and act for an immediate release of all the hostages. We will not rest until every one of them is brought home, the living to the loving embrace of their families, and the fallen laid to rest with dignity. Every last one. And this is like the thing, like the focus on the world, and the fact of something I've been seeing recently is videos something like, why does Israel not care that it's been that with its isolation, that is specifically the word that is being used, that Israel doesn't care for its isolation. Why is it not viewed as abandonment? Because Israel isn't being isolated; it's being abandoned by the Western values. It's being well, not by Western values. It's being abandoned by
By the
countries
way,
that should have Western values. Jonathan.
yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, the reason why has been kind of well documented, and we've talked about it quite a bit on this channel, and maybe Israel's lack of moral clarity. But just I go back to the atrocity itself, the attack itself, and the complete disregard of respect for when Israel targets something, they often pamphlet ahead to warn the civilians. Israel can pinpoint out one apartment within an entire apartment building where they know that the bad guys are in that one little apartment, and they find some incredible technological way to literally only target the bad guys, the militants, the combatants, the people who would do them harm. The Hezbollah pager attack is the best example. For Hamas and for most of the Islamo-fascist world, it's literally just about hunting down Jews. Are they militants? Are they soldiers? Who gives a what? They were happy to kind of literally cut off their heads on October 7th, and in the case of this gentleman, bring his bones home as, I guess that's kind of some kind of a sick souvenir. You bring home a dead Jew. I mean, sick, effing sick. But again, runs through the veins, I think, from what I've seen of the Palestinian culture. Because if things are as bad as the mainstream media would have you believe, if it's that bad, I don't know why they haven't yet released the hostages. If the famine is so bad, if Israel is so terrible, why have they not waved the white flag and brought this to an end? And I think it's because this is part of their culture: hatred of the Jews, destruction of the Jewish state, and even of the remains of an innocent victim that was slaughtered.
Yeah, and as Paul says, they still have bodies from 5 to 10 years ago, which I believe is true, that Hamas is still holding bodies from past conflicts. But I mean, something you mentioned about sort of the precision strikes on Israel, even that is being held against Israel. Now, people who remember the recent strike at a hospital by Israel, apparently it looks like it didn't get the authorization that Israel usually does when it comes to any strikes. And now that is being held against Israel. So the fact that Israel is always or the sort of the command the basic idea is you always get authorization for every strike because Israel didn't do it this one time. Now this is being held against Israel. When did like Hamas get like any how many lawyers does Hamas employ when it comes to making sure strikes are according to international law? So again, every time Israel is trying to uphold this sort of standard, one, it's impossible. Like everything Israel does will automatically go against it, and also it's immoral. Israel should do whatever is necessary to end this as soon as possible, not make sure Palestinians don't die.
And yes, Daniel, and every single death in this conflict, every single death is on the backs of Hamas, not of Israel. Hamas started it. Israel is acting improperly. I think it's acting improperly, but it is acting in self-defense, which is proper. And to your point, I mean, the more that they have coddled the enemy and fed the enemy and kept, it's given the enemy every reason to stay fighting, to keep fighting. But when I hear these stories, though, about how bodies were mistreated, there's a tradition in Judaism, and maybe somebody in the chat might get it wrong, but when someone dies in Judaism, that body is not left alone until it is buried. And there's literally people who stay with it's buried within a week, and there's someone who stays with that body so that that body is not alone even after it's dead, before it gets buried. To me, that always showed such a reverence for humanity, for the body, that in Judaism, you don't even want to let the body have to be alone when it's making its transition. Now, of course, I'm speaking in mystical terms. I don't believe in this as an objectivist, but I do see it as an Israeli, Hebrew, and Jewish reverence for the body, for mankind. I mean, it is something special. It is something not to be defaced and destroyed, as Hamas so willingly and gleefully not only does, but also then videotapes and posts for all their sicko friends.
You have in the chat says Quat Hamet, which I think is what you're referring to, this idea of honoring the dead until basically the burial. But
Like it
something,
shows,
yeah.
Shows a respect for humanity, and oftentimes the person sitting next to that doesn't even know that person. They literally came in just to. It kind of shows a respect that Israelis, I believe, have for the human as a species that Hamas does not.
Yeah, now to cover a little bit of Israelis a bit more, we have a comment from the Hostages and Missing Families Forum who have said, only by bringing home all the hostages can we achieve healing and national recovery. This is our highest national priority. The people of Israel want every hostage returned home, the living, the rehabilitation, the fallen for dignified burial through a comprehensive deal. And again, this pisses me off. The fact that we or IDF have recovered two bodies. Now, I'm not sure if I mentioned there were two bodies recovered because I think the other person there was no information revealed about them, but two bodies were recovered. And again, this forum uses it to push Israel into surrender, to basically argue that the way to get the hostages home, the way to solve this is to get some sort of a deal, which again would include Hamas would stay here, Hamas would stay in Gaza. What happens? What happens if Hamas decides to do October 7th again? We know they will. We have information even from Qatari officials that who I think the CEO of one of the biggest news networks that is pro-government has been saying, yeah, we need more hostage takings. We need more October 7th. So again, trying to hide or trying to say that, we just get a deal and we get all of our people home, which I understand why you would want your loved ones home, even sort of just the bodies. But doing that at a cost of, again, not some, maybe some people, the rest of your family in the future, or some of your friends in the future. Who knows who will Hamas take next time? So what needs to happen is end this decisively, so nothing like this happens again.
Yeah, I mean, the suicide bomb was a real effective means for Islamic totalitarians in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And Hamas has demonstrated, Daniel, in real time that hostage taking works. It really works. You can get legitimacy, Palestinian states getting recognized by all these European countries. You can get aid. You can get, you win. That essentially works. So my sense is that we might not even see a direct attacks like we saw on October 7th. You just might see now a spate of kidnappings around the world. We joked last summer, but I could see kidnappings and people being held at the homes of students. I don't want to be so dark, but students who support the Palestinian cause. Just as the Palestinians hold hostages in their homes of their civilians. So no, they have demonstrated that Israel and the U.S. is willing to negotiate, willing to deal with hostage taking, and guaranteeing more of it. And even when it comes to something like the bones, they not only murder somebody, but they take the bones back to the home base to negotiate with later on. It's such a sick approach, and the U.S. and Israel is encouraging it by making a deal.
We have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. And yeah, the fact that we are sort of like, yeah, acknowledging that, right? We are dealing with Qatar. We are dealing with Egypt because they are the intermediaries. Again, like you can tell, you can tell a lot about a person by looking at their friends, right? We shouldn't, if we do not, there is a doctrine of not negotiating with terrorists, which is an understandable doctrine. You don't negotiate with somebody who uses terror as part of their negotiations.
When do they start following that?
Well, we do follow that. We don't negotiate with Hamas. We negotiate with Qatar, who is negotiating on the behalf of Hamas. So again, and I think that doesn't make difference.
My head and tell me it's raining, Daniel.
Well, that is the technically correct thing. But you're right. It's the same thing. It's negotiating with people who are okay with holding terrorists in their country, who are not doing anything about those terrorists, who want them. Right now, a part of Hamas leadership is still in Qatar, is still being held there, and nobody is doing anything about it. Now, I think something that also happened today, it looks like Turkey is completely cutting off ties with Israel. Turkey is another country that has trained inside its territory Hamas terrorists. So, and we keep, like, Turkey is in NATO. We keep acting like these nations have something shared with us, that, they're just another country that we can deal with. They're not.
No, and it's that unsavory combination of Islam and politics, like over and over again. And the irony is that Israel has always talked about the Jewish state. Yes, I know, but it's also the capitalist state. It is the one area of the Middle East that's dominated, in my experience, by reason, by reality, not by the mysticism that dominates Egypt and Qatar, the rest of the Middle East. So Israel is the good guy here, hated and despised by certainly college kids and across the globe. And what worries me, Daniel, is just the legitimization and encouraging of hostage taking now as a perfectly valid technique. They've seen it works, and they're going to be doing more of it around the globe in the months and years to come.
Well, let's listen to the Israeli ambassador to the US. There was a short interview, and yeah, let's listen.
You got to ask yourself a question. A country that's capable of taking out the control of all of Iranian airspace in 72 hours, allowing for the B-2s of the United States to come in and obliterate the nuclear weapons operations in Iran, is not capable of ending this war sooner? Of course we are, but it's because we're taking precautions that no other country has ever taken. No other country has had to face a situation of 450 miles of terror tunnels under an area that's 24 miles long. We're dealing with a ghoulish, fiendish organization that's not only hiding behind civilians, but is using civilians as cannon fodder. They enjoy this. This is a death cult. They say this. You have to read their stuff. We do everything we possibly can. My own son was killed because we do not kill innocent civilians. He went in on foot into Gaza and led the troops at the beginning of the war and was killed when he went into a Hamas booby trap. If we were doing what we're being accused of doing, okay, maybe he'd be alive today. And so many of our soldiers that have died are being alive today. And the demonstrations you showed are only half of the demonstrations. The other half of the demonstrations are families of soldiers who are saying to the Prime Minister, you have to end this war with a defeat of Hamas because otherwise we're going back to October 6th.
Before you go, Mr. Ambassador, the name of your fallen son?
Moshe.
Moshe. May his memory be a blessing.
So this was the Israeli ambassador to the U.S. on CNN, and I mean, you just have to love the CNN title there. Global outrage deepens over attacks in Gaza, over Israeli attacks in Gaza that killed journalists. As if that is the fundamental thing that has to be focused on right now. Not the fact that the war is still going on. Like, there is a clear good side here. This is not some kind of like moral dilemma that you have to choose between two sides. There is a clear good side that should do whatever is necessary. And as he have said, if Israel was really accused of doing what is being accused of, this war would have ended already. Because if Israel was really trying to starve Palestinians, it could have, on October 7th, it could have closed the border and given the Palestinians a choice to either starve or surrender.
Instead, it's been self-sacrifice, and that interview is heartbreaking, Daniel, to hear that he's boasting about all the altruism that Israel and the U.S. ostensibly, certainly Israel engages in. We phone ahead before we bomb. We only target all of that, and his sacrifice includes his own son. His own son died because of that, because they didn't want to hit one of the innocent Palestinians, the innocent Gazans, the ones who were hiding the hostages in their basements, in their tunnels, in their homes. So it's, my heart breaks for him, but that's a product of the philosophy, that altruist, self-sacrificial philosophy Ms. Rand wrote about, Dr. Brooke wrote about when it comes to war, and we see playing out in Israel right now.
Yeah, and even sort of the whoever was the host asking for the name of the son of the Israeli ambassador. The fact is that it doesn't matter what you say. If you really mean, if people truly mean that Israel has a right to defend itself, or that we stand behind Israel, or that we are sad for the death of his son, unless you're willing to take actions that would actually prove that, those are just not only those are just empty words, those are disgusting words, because you don't really mean it. You just are saying it because this is something you say. If you truly mean that you're sorry, if you're truly behind Israel's right to defend itself, then you would support full-on actions into Israel. You would support complete embargo on Gaza that would actually bring the end to the war, that would actually recognize the Israeli so-called right to defend itself, which I don't even like to use, because this is not a right. This is a responsibility the government has, and Israel is failing its responsibility.
Yeah, and its enemies play into it with, things like, exactly the remains being, in effect, continuing to be held hostage, and even the remains of Israelis that have been murdered, civilian Israelis that have been murdered, used as bargaining chips, and Israel stepping up to do the bargaining. And I think that's what's so disconcerting, is that it's guaranteeing a decade plus more now of hostage taking, negotiating, and emboldening all these groups which hate the West, certainly hate Israel and the U.S., and would love to see more harm done to it in any way they can.
Somebody in the chat says, and no one cares about all the self-sacrifice, they still hate Israel. Well, that's the thing about self-sacrifice. It is not for you to take pride in your self-sacrifice. If you do take pride, well, that's not self-sacrifice enough. You're being selfish if you want to actually gain some virtue in being self-sacrificial. The only proper way to be consistent self-sacrificial is to kill yourself. That is the only way to be completely consistent with that philosophy. So yeah, if Israel accepts the morality of self-sacrifice, it will always be hated, because as long as it exists, it's a proof that they are not being self-sacrificial enough.
I mean, we never will know, but Daniel, I mean, we talked in the first 2 months of this conflict, first month of, and I remember talking with Razi and other people on this channel about, what if Israel completely hit all those places with no regard to the hostages, hit them hard, hit them incessantly, and and made cut off the food, cut off the water, cut off the internet, and made the Palestinians realize that they cannot win this war. Instead, everything that's been done is dragging them along. Keep fighting, keep fighting. You're bringing down Israel. And in effect, the willingness to do the deal is the icing on the cake, if you will. They finally brought down mighty Israel, and all it took was a couple of hostages, which they kept in tunnels like rats anyway.
Well, we'll be continuing covering this. We'll talk about something a bit happier, and it's the recent strike of Israel to the Houthis that took out most of their leadership. So that's in few minutes on the reality show. But first, Jonathan, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
Well, just check out the book that I published with Dr. Leonard Peikoff. Dr. Peikoff was Ayn Rand's intellectual heir, is Ayn Rand's intellectual heir. He is a huge pet lover. He's a dog lover. Miss Rand was a cat lover. And there's a book called Can You Really Love a Dog? It's at Amazon, and it's a great gift for dog lovers. And basically, Dr. Peikoff gives a philosophical understanding of pet ownership. So it's really unusual, and it features all of these never-before-seen photos of Miss Rand and her cats. Can You Really Love a Dog? It's at Amazon, and thanks to all of our subscribers.
And you can join us on the reality show in just a few minutes. Thank you, Jonathan, for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and bye-bye.